The punch landed clean on Muhammad Ali's jaw. Then another, and another. For 30 seconds straight, Ali just stood there, hands at his sides, letting his opponent hit him. The crowd at Madison Square Garden erupted in confusion. What was happening? Was Ali injured? Was this some kind of sick game? But what those 19,000 people didn't know, what the millions watching on television couldn't see, was that Muhammad Ali had just discovered something about his opponent that changed everything. Something so devastating that the greatest fighter in the world made a decision that would haunt him for decades and inspire millions. This is the story of the night Muhammad Ali chose compassion over victory and how that choice saved a man's life. Before we continue, if you're already feeling this story in your chest, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between winning and doing what's right? Because what you're about to witness will redefine what it means to be a champion. October 26, 1970, Madison Square Garden, New York City. The most famous boxing arena in the world was packed to capacity. Muhammad Ali, newly returned to boxing after his controversial ban for refusing military service, was scheduled to fight Jerry Quarry, a tough Irish-American brawler from California with a record of 37 wins and 4 losses. But Jerry Quarry wasn't just any opponent. He was carrying a burden so heavy that it was slowly destroying him from the inside out. And Muhammad Ali was about to become the only person who could see it. 3 months earlier, on July 15, 1970, Private First Class Michael Quarry, Jerry's younger brother, had been killed in action in Vietnam, an ambush near the DMZ. Michael was 19 years old. He'd been in country for only 6 weeks. Jerry Quarry had been training for the Ali fight when he got the news. His manager, Jack Quarry, also Jerry's father, had made a brutal decision. They wouldn't postpone the fight. They wouldn't tell anyone about Michael's death. They would bury it, literally and figuratively, until after the biggest payday of Jerry's career. Your brother would want you to fight, Jack had told Jerry at Michael's funeral in California, which happened 3 weeks before the Ali bout. He died for his country. You owe it to him to win this fight and make something of his sacrifice. But Jerry Quarry wasn't fighting for glory anymore. He was fighting to outrun his grief. He was fighting to make sense of a world where his baby brother, who used to shadow box in their garage pretending to be Jerry, was now in a grave at Arlington National Cemetery. Jerry had told no one outside his immediate family about Michael's death. Not his trainers, not the press, not even his closest friends in the boxing world. The Quarry family had agreed to keep it secret until after the Ali fight. They were terrified that if the Boxing Commission knew Jerry was dealing with such fresh trauma, they might pull him from the card. As Jerry sat in his dressing room at Madison Square Garden that October night, his hands trembling as he wrapped them in white tape, all he could think about was the last conversation he'd had with Michael. It was April 1970. Michael was about to ship out to Vietnam. They were sitting in their father's truck outside the recruitment office in Bellflower, California. "I'm scared, Jerry," Michael had admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone's scared, little brother. That's what makes you brave. Doing it anyway." "No, I mean, what if I don't come back?" Jerry had grabbed his brother's shoulder, looked him dead in the eyes, and said something he would regret for the rest of his life. "Quarries don't quit. Quarries don't break. You're going to come home, and we're going to celebrate with you sitting ringside when I beat Muhammad Ali. That's a promise." But Michael didn't come home, and now Jerry was about to step into the ring with the most famous athlete in the world, carrying a promise he couldn't keep, and a grief so fresh it felt like his chest was being crushed with every breath. The walk to the ring felt like a death march. Jerry's legs were heavy, his vision slightly blurred from the tears he'd been fighting back for hours. The crowd was roaring, but all Jerry could hear was the sound of the 21-gun salute at Michael's funeral. All he could see was his mother's face when the military officers knocked on their door with the news. Muhammad Ali, meanwhile, was in peak form, dancing up the aisle, shadowboxing, talking to the cameras. "I'm back," he shouted. "The greatest is back, and tonight Jerry Quarry learns what it means to dance with destiny." But even in his showmanship, even in his pre-fight confidence, Ali felt something odd. He'd studied Quarry's recent fights on film. The man was a technical brawler, disciplined, focused. But as Ali watched Quarry climb through the ropes tonight, something was different. Quarry's eyes were distant, haunted. His jaw was clenched too tight. His hands, even inside the gloves, seemed to be trembling. The referee, Tony Perez, called both fighters to the center of the ring for final instructions. As Ali and Quarry stood face to face, Ali looked into his opponent's eyes and saw something that stopped him cold. This wasn't the look of a fighter ready for battle. This was the look of a man drowning. "You good, man?" Ali asked quietly, breaking protocol. Quarry just nodded, his jaw clenched so tight he couldn't speak. The bell rang for round one. Jerry Quarry came out like a man possessed. He threw wild haymakers, overhand rights, combinations that had no setup or strategy. He was fighting like someone who wanted to get knocked out or knock someone out. Anything to stop the thoughts in his head. Ali danced and dodged, confused by Quarry's reckless aggression. "Slow down, man," Ali said during a clinch. "You're going to burn out fighting like that." But Quarry couldn't slow down. Slowing down meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering. Remembering meant seeing Michael's face. Round two saw more of the same. Quarry was landing some shots, hard shots, but they were desperate punches, not calculated ones. Ali began to study him more carefully. Quarry's technique was falling apart. His footwork, usually so precise, was sloppy, and his eyes kept losing focus, like he was seeing something that wasn't there. In round three, during another clinch, Ali felt Quarry's body shaking against him, not from exertion, from something else. "Talk to me, man," Ali whispered. "What's eating you?" Quarry pushed away and threw a wild right hand that missed by 2 feet. The crowd laughed, thinking Quarry was outclassed. But Ali saw something they didn't. This man wasn't losing, he was breaking. That's when Ali noticed it. As Quarry's glove came up between rounds, Ali saw something written on the tape of Quarry's left glove. Small letters, barely visible, written in black marker. "For Michael, KIA, July 15th, 70. Ali's stomach dropped. KIA, killed in action. Michael, a brother, a son, a friend, dead 3 months ago. Everything suddenly made sense. The desperate fighting style, the haunted eyes, the trembling, the recklessness. Jerry Quarry wasn't trying to win this fight. He was trying to punish himself for being alive when his brother wasn't. The bell rang for round four. Instead of coming out aggressive, Ali stood in the center of the ring and lowered his hands slightly. When Quarry charged forward throwing punches, Ali didn't dodge. He didn't dance. He simply covered up, letting Quarry's punches land on his gloves and arms. "Let it out, brother," Ali said from behind his guard. "Let it all out." The crowd began to murmur in confusion. This wasn't the Ali they knew. He wasn't taunting. He wasn't showboating. He was just absorbing punishment. After 30 seconds of this, the referee stepped in, confused. "Ali, are you fighting or not?" "I'm fighting," Ali said. "Just not the way you think." When the fighters clinched again, Ali pulled Quarry close and whispered, "Michael, your brother." "When?" Quarry's entire body went rigid. "How do you know about Michael?" "I saw it on your glove." KIA, July 15th, 3 months ago. Quarry tried to pull away, but Ali held him tighter. "Let me go," Quarry choked out. "I have to finish this. I have to." "You have to nothing," Ali said firmly. "Your brother wouldn't want you destroying yourself like this." "You don't know what he'd want," Quarry's voice cracked. "You don't know anything about him." The referee separated them, and the fight continued. But everything had changed. For the rest of round four and all of round five, Muhammad Ali did something unprecedented in professional boxing. He refused to throw meaningful punches. He dodged, he covered up, he clinched, but he didn't attack. He let Quarry swing wildly, burning energy, releasing grief through violence. The crowd grew hostile. Some booed, some threw trash into the ring. The commentators were baffled. "I don't understand what Ali is doing here," Howard Cosell said into his microphone. "He could end this fight at any time, but he seems to be protecting Quarry. This is the most bizarre strategy I've ever witnessed." But Ali wasn't protecting Quarry from punches. He was protecting him from himself. In round six, Jerry Quarry's body finally gave out, not from Ali's punches, but from exhaustion and emotional collapse. His arms dropped. His legs wobbled. He stood in the center of the ring, tears streaming down his face, completely unable to continue. The referee stopped the fight. Technical knockout. Muhammad Ali was declared the winner. But as the crowd roared and the press surged toward the ring, Ali did something that silenced everyone. He walked over to Jerry Quarry, who was slumped in his corner crying, and removed both of their gloves with the help of their cornerman. Then Ali grabbed Quarry's left hand, the one with Michael's name written on the tape, and raised it above both their heads. "This man is a champion," Ali announced to the confused crowd. "His brother gave his life for this country, and Jerry Quarry stepped into this ring carrying that weight. That makes him braver than any of us." The crowd fell silent, then slowly began to applaud. Not for the fight, for the moment of humanity they were witnessing. After the fight, Ali refused to do the traditional winner's press conference. Instead, he spent 2 hours in Jerry Quarry's dressing room. Just the two of them, talking about brothers, about loss, about the weight of survivor's guilt. "I lost my mother's brother in a car accident when I was young," Ali told Jerry. "I thought I could have saved him if I'd been there. Carried that weight for years until someone told me, the people we lose don't want us to suffer. They want us to live. Really live. Not just survive." Jerry Quarry cried like he hadn't cried since Michael's funeral. Ali held him through it, this tough Irish-American brawler and this black Muslim champion, two men from completely different worlds, connected by understanding what it meant to carry unbearable pain. But Ali wasn't done. The next morning, Ali called his friend Jim Brown, the famous football player turned activist who worked with veteran support organizations. "I got a guy who needs help," Ali said. "Military family. Lost his brother in Vietnam. He's drowning, Jim." Within a week, Jerry Quarry was connected with a support group for Gold Star families, families who had lost loved ones in military service. Ali personally paid for Jerry's therapy sessions for 6 months. He called Jerry every few weeks to check in. He even attended a memorial service for Michael Quarry in California. "Why are you doing this?" Jerry asked Ali during one of their phone calls months later. "You barely know me. I tried to knock your head off." "Because I saw you, brother," Ali said. "Really saw you. And I couldn't unsee it. When you see someone drowning, you don't ask why. You just pull them out of the water." Jerry Quarry never became the champion he dreamed of being. He fought for another 8 years, winning some, losing some. But something changed in him after that night with Ali. He stopped fighting angry. He started fighting with purpose. In 1975, Jerry Quarry retired from boxing and did something unexpected. He became a counselor for veterans dealing with PTSD and survivor's guilt. He worked with Gold Star families, helping siblings and parents of fallen soldiers navigate their grief. "Muhammad Ali taught me something that night in Madison Square Garden," Jerry would tell the families he counseled. "He taught me that strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how willing you are to be vulnerable. My brother Michael died a hero, but I was dying too, from the inside. Ali saw that and saved my life." For 30 years, Jerry Quarry counseled over 2,000 veterans and family members. He never charged a fee. He called it his way of honoring Michael. In 1999, Jerry Quarry was diagnosed with dementia pugilistica, brain damage from his boxing career. As his condition worsened, his family struggled to afford his medical care. Muhammad Ali, by then retired and battling Parkinson's disease himself, heard about Jerry's situation. Ali personally paid for Jerry's care for the last 7 years of his life. He visited Jerry in the nursing home when he could, sitting beside his hospital bed, talking to him even when Jerry no longer recognized him. "You saved me first," Ali told Jerry during one of those visits, his Parkinson's making his voice quiet and strained. "That night in the ring, you taught me what it really means to be great. It's not about winning. It's about seeing someone else's pain and responding with love." Jerry Quarry passed away on January 3, 1999, at the age of 53. Muhammad Ali was one of the pallbearers at his funeral. As Ali helped carry his old opponent's casket, he whispered something that Jerry's family would later share. "You're with Michael now, brother. You're finally home." The story of that night in October 1970 became legendary, but not for the reasons most boxing matches become famous. It wasn't remembered for great punches or athletic achievement. It was remembered for the moment when Muhammad Ali chose to see a man's pain and respond with compassion instead of conquest. In 2001, The Jerry Quarry Foundation was established by his family to provide support services for veterans and Gold Star families. Muhammad Ali was the first donor, and he served on the board until his own death in 2016. Today, the foundation has helped over 15,000 families navigate the aftermath of military loss. They provide counseling, financial support, and community connections for people drowning in grief. Exactly the kind of help Jerry wished he'd had when he lost Michael. On the wall of the foundation's main office in California hangs a photograph from that night in 1970. It shows Muhammad Ali holding Jerry Quarry's hand high in the air, both men's faces filled with emotion. Below the photo is a plaque with words Ali said years later. "I won a lot of fights in my life. I knocked out Sonny Liston. I beat George Foreman in Zaire. I went toe-to-toe with Joe Frazier 3 times. But the most important fight I ever had was the one I refused to finish. That's the night I learned that sometimes the greatest victory is choosing not to hurt someone who's already hurting." Jerry Quarry's son James, who was only 4 years old the night of the Ali fight, is now the executive director of the foundation. He never met his uncle Michael, but he grew up hearing stories about him and about the night Muhammad Ali saw his father's pain and chose compassion over victory. "People ask me all the time what made Muhammad Ali the greatest," James says from his office, surrounded by photos of his father and Ali together over the years. "It wasn't his speed or his power or his championships. It was his ability to see another human being suffering and respond with love. My dad was drowning in grief that night. Ali saw him, pulled him out of the water, and gave him a reason to keep living." Muhammad Ali refused to punch Jerry Quarry that night in 1970 because he saw something more important than victory. He saw a brother carrying unbearable pain. He saw a man fighting the wrong battle. He saw someone who needed mercy more than defeat. And in that moment of recognition, Ali proved what real strength looks like. It's not about dominating your opponent. It's about having the courage to set aside your own ambitions when you realize someone needs your compassion more than they need your fists. The punch never landed because Ali chose love over winning, and that choice saved a life, inspired a foundation, and helped 15,000 families find hope in their darkest moments. That's not just boxing history. That's human history. That's the legacy of a man who understood that being the greatest meant being the greatest human being, not just the greatest fighter. Muhammad Ali refused to punch Jerry Quarry on October 26, 1970. 54 years later, we're still feeling the impact of that compassion. That's the power of choosing to see someone's pain and responding with love. That's what it means to be a champion.